Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining me for another live episode of Your Family Lawyer. Thank you for joining me. Your Family Lawyer happens here every Tuesday by 7 p.m. Nigeria time. And what we'll get to discuss is just to see how we can, from time to time, share educational information, orientation on family law matters, right? Nigeria family law matters as our focus. So you get to know that. I remember that all the time. Okay, the conversation we're having today is very straightforward, and I hope you will able to understand it. It's particularly for Christians, right? Christians who get to believe and ask questions similar to must they have a church wedding? Yes, we get to have this again and again. Christians who are asking, must I have a church wedding? Is it a must for me to have a church wedding or not? So this is for you, and we are looking at it from the family law perspective. If you followed family law series over a time, you understand that what I share here is not legal advice. So if you need legal advice, you should speak to a lawyer. And again, you also agree with me that I've said it clearly on several occasions that in Nigeria we have different types of marriages, and not just that, that it is a law that actually determines whether a marriage is valid or a marriage is not valid. So let's narrow it down to Christian marriage. When people say Christian marriage, what do they actually mean by Christian marriage? What they mean a marriage that was solemnized, a marriage that was a wedding that was celebrated in a church hall, or perhaps maybe in an open place or some other hall, but by a church priest. Now that's a conversation for another day. That for you to actually say you have a valid church wedding, okay, let me just say it here. Let me chip it in. For you to say you have a valid church wedding, the wedding must have been conducted in your church hall and also by an ordained licensed priest of your church, pastor of your church, so that you cannot be doing your wedding in XYZ church and go and bring a pastor from ABC church to come and do your joining, right? It could be your pastor, but you decide to say, oh, I want to have a garden wedding. Oh, that's fine. But in law, that marriage is not valid, right? That marriage was not properly conducted. So now we are talking about if you must even have a church wedding before your marriage will be valid or regarded as lawful. So before I answer you, you want to pay attention to the fact that in Nigeria, we have broadly two types of marriage. We have the traditional marriage or customary marriage, which is based on different traditions and customs of our various tribes in Nigeria, and we also have statutory marriage, which is based on the Marriage Act. Now, weddings based on the Marriage Act are weddings that are either conducted in the church or they are conducted at a marriage registry. Traditional customary marriages, we have the marriages that are conducted based on your customs and traditions or based on Islamic law. So the nikah falls under customary marriage, although we have many Muslims these days who try to separate it, but in reality, it falls under customary marriage. And that's because it shares elements with customary marriage. It follows most of the traditional rules of various traditions, unlike statutory marriage. Now, for Christians who this video is particularly for, like this live episode we have it today, is particularly for you. You do not have to have, it's not necessary for you to have a church wedding before we can say you're validly married. If you have a customary marriage, your marriage is valid. What do you need to do? Approach your local government and approach your local government or the customary courts in that area to get the customary marriage certificate. I know many people don't know this, but yes, the truth is that in Nigeria, you can have a customary marriage certificate. All you need to do is just to go to your local government or you go to the customary court of that area where you had the traditional marriage within 3 months of the marriage, right? It's a window period within 3 months of the marriage, and you'll be able to get your customary marriage certificate. So let's get that clear. Another option you have is that you can decide to go to a marriage registry and have a statutory wedding. If you have a statutory wedding at a marriage registry, it's still regarded as valid. It is the law of the land that determines whether your marriage is valid or not. So it's not a must that it must be in church for you to say, oh, I have a statutory marriage. Interestingly, if you got married in church, but your marriage in church was not did not follow the rules of the Marriage Act, we don't even regard it as a statutory marriage. We regard it as a customary marriage, right? So it will fall under a customary marriage if it does not follow the rules of a statutory marriage. It does not follow the rules of the Marriage Act. I hope this information that I've shared with you today, you find it useful and you get to find value out of it. Next week, Tuesday, I'll be back here as we'll be discussing another topic on your family lawyer. Can you share this with your friends so that they will learn the same things that you are learning because best together, talk together? And not just that, ensure you set an alarm to join me again 7 p.m. next week, Tuesday, for other conversations. Remember, I've said this again and again that what I share here is a professional advice that if you need professional counsel on any legal matter, consult a lawyer near you or use the details on this particular episode. My name is Earl and I'm alright from the ancient and modern city of Ibadan. You're all.